Today, we live in an area where creating content can make all the difference in your business. And in my business, I always lead with a content-first strategy. Over the last 10 years, this has served me incredibly well. And the result of that has been opportunities that have come my way that have been incredible that I would have otherwise never had. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you why I'm leading my real estate investment business with a content-first strategy. So if you're ready to go, let's dive into it. My name is Trent Dyrsmid, and one of the things that I do is I help tech entrepreneurs, SaaS owners, tech executives to diversify and build wealth through investing in commercial real estate, which is something that I have done in the past and continue to do, and it has been a very lucrative thing for me to do. In addition to being a real estate investor, I am also two other important things. Number one is I am a content creator. I have been a creator for a very long time, and it has afforded me many opportunities. And I am also what I would consider to be a power user of AI, maybe as many of us are these days, to help me in the process of content creation and growing my real estate investment business and so forth. All right, so just a short presentation here, mostly so that I remain on talking points. I'm going to have a lot of stories that I weave in with this. So if you're thinking I'm just going to read you the slides, that's definitely not going to be the case. Why content creation is so important to me is this. Number one is it amplifies my message. Number two, it amplifies my network. Number three, it helps me build credibility. Number four, it gives me deal flow. The more that you are putting your work out into the world, the more opportunities that come your way. And I've been doing this for 10 years now. And I'll tell you, some of the best opportunities in business that have ever come my way, that have made me the most amount of money in my life, have come because of my focus on content creation. So if you're an investor who's, say, not doing content, you have some problems. Number one is broker reliance. So most investors are getting their listings from brokers. Or not listings, but they're getting their opportunities from brokers. And in commercial real estate, the brokers really are important. They're the conduit to deal flow. Now, they're not the only conduit, but they are a significant conduit. And the good ones, they're getting calls all the time. And if you're one of those people who's calling a broker, they might not be as excited to hear from you as you think, because what they want to know is, what do you want specifically? In other words, what's your buy box? And then number two, can you close? Are you actually going to buy the thing versus all the other clients that they have? Content can go a long way in helping you to establish credibility, especially when you're doing deals, because if you're creating content about the deals that you're doing, you can then share that content with these brokers and say, here's some of the deals I've done. And that's going to go a long way to helping you to build your credibility. So that will also, number two here, the fierce competition, that's going to be another way of helping you to ensure that you're standing out from the competition. Because as I mentioned, these brokers, they're getting a lot of calls from a lot of people on an ongoing basis, and you really need to build relationships with them. And so how do you do that? Content can play a very important role in doing that. And so then another problem that buyers or investors have, it's probably their biggest problem, to be honest with you, is when you're earlier on in your career as an investor and you haven't made a lot of investments yet, you're going to have really limited deal flow. And limited deal flow means limited opportunities to make more money and limited opportunities to invest more money. So deal flow is incredibly important, and there's a number of very clever ways to get more deal flow. Brokers can be and should be a huge part of your deal flow, but not the only part. If you're enjoying this video and want to learn more about investing in commercial real estate, I strongly encourage that you visit investwithtrent.com so that you can join the weekly email newsletter where I will share tips, links to my latest videos, and all sorts of things to help educate you to becoming a better commercial real estate investor. And now back to the video. And again, leveraging your content, leveraging your credibility, amplifying your message is going to help you to go a long way. And then problem number 5 is market saturation. Anytime there's a really good opportunity, it's probably not going to make it onto LoopNet or to Crexi. It's generally what we call a pocket listing, and the brokers are going to show that to all of their best buyers. And if it's a really great opportunity, chances are it's going to get under contract before it ever sees the light of day, which means that if you don't have those relationships, then of course you're not going to see those deals. So here's a quick little overview of my content first approach. So I'm very focused on strategic content. And what does that mean? With my content, I'm trying to do a number of things. Number one, in most of my deals going forward, I will be partnering with investors, because if you want to buy multiple properties per year, unless you have an unlimited bank account, which I do not, you will need to partner with investors. So the more content that you create about how you do what you do and deals that you've done in the past, and the more you teach people, the more of an audience that you're going to build. For example, in one of my other businesses, I have a pretty popular channel in the aviation space. And so that channel has attracted a very large audience of people who, as their career 2.0, want to become an airline pilot, which is something that I was a goal that I set. And I shared my entire journey in public from when I was just a private pilot all the way to when I became an airline pilot. And in doing so, I built this incredibly loyal and incredibly engaged audience. And that turned into actually a 6-figure side hustle, much to my surprise. In the world of real estate, the goal is to do exactly the same thing. In the past, I have bought light industrial buildings. I have invested in mobile home parks, and I have invested in a multifamily apartment. And one of the things that I'm particularly interested in these days is self-storage for a variety of reasons. And I'll probably cover that in future videos on the channel. So if you want to see that, make sure you subscribe. But there's a huge learning curve ahead of me. And so by sharing the journey of going from rookie who's never bought a self-storage before to someone who has and who's optimized and stabilized the asset and increased its cash flow and increased its value, people get really engaged with that kind of storytelling. And not only, again, does that build credibility with the brokers, because if they care to watch that content, they can see that you've been successful, or you maybe produce a summary video at the end or what have you. But it's also going to go a long way to helping you to attract investors, which obviously you're going to need if you want to do multiple deals per year. So strategic content is super important. That allows me to grow faster. It allows me to increase trust and credibility with my audience. And ultimately, that will lead to more off-market deals. And those off-market deals, that's really where the money is. So there's a couple of different pillars that I mentioned, and I've already really talked about this, so we'll skip past this. So I want to attract great deals, so deal flow. I want to build credibility. I want to generate investor interest. And then I want all of that to turn into leverage so that as my content, as my channel becomes more popular, more and more opportunities come my way. And so ideally what this looks like is this. If you have a website, in my case, mine is investwithtrent.com. If you want to get on the newsletter, just visit that website. It's a weekly newsletter that I highly encourage you join, because I share a lot of really great stuff in it. And over time, the traffic goes up and the leads go up and the opportunities go up. So how do you drive more deal flow? Number one, once you're producing content, obviously you want to pay attention to what your videos are doing, how well they're doing, because that's going to give you an eye to what other types of videos you're going to want to create. And in-depth market trend analysis, property walkthroughs, you want to showcase your evaluation process, your investment criteria, demonstrate your expertise. And again, these are all ways to increase your credibility, increase your deal flow, increase your network. It's all about broadening your message or amplifying your message. You could be producing case studies, LinkedIn insights, educational content, all this types of stuff. And when I set out to do this, here's a shout out to AI and how incredibly helpful it is. I didn't know exactly all the types of content that I was going to create on the Invest with Trent channel. So I asked AI to develop a content plan for me, and it was absolutely incredible. And it saved me an incredible amount of time and came up with a fantastic plan. And it's not actually that hard to do. So I would highly recommend that if you're not using AI already for planning your content, that you do that. Then we have something called the multiplier effect. So this is when you're creating long form content like I do, you want to leverage it and you want to reuse it. So one original piece of content gets chopped up into shorts, into reels, into posts to further amplify that particular piece of content. And the more content that you produce, again, you're amplifying your message. The more you amplify your message, the more people you see it, and ultimately the more deals that will come your way. Passive lead generation. So that basically means, your content, it's out there working all the time, even when you're not. And it's qualifying prospects and it's building relationships with your audience. And my aviation business is a perfect example of that. During the period of time when I was a flight instructor for a year, I was booked solid and I charged a higher rate than most everybody else in my market. And oddly enough, the vast majority of my students didn't even live in my hometown. They would literally move. They would pack up their RVs or they would rent a house and they would move to Boise specifically to train with me because I had demonstrated that I was able to train faster and more cost effectively than anybody else in space. So in their minds, I was the best and they wanted to be with the best. And so content played a huge role in that. And then finally, network amplification. This is just like snowballs rolling down hills. The more your audience grows, the more other people in your audience tell other people about your audience. And then there's more networking and then there's more referrals and then there's more sharing. And it just builds and it builds and it builds. Whereas if you're not creating content, guess what? None of that happens. And then you're just left cold calling brokers every day after day. And so you never get a flywheel effect. And so when you stop cold calling those brokers, guess what else stops? Your deal flow. I don't want that to happen to me. I want my deal flow. I just want my phone to ring so that I don't have to go look for deals. I want to become known as the best buyer in my market. And so content, again, plays a massive role in making that happen. So why does this work specifically in commercial real estate investment? And honestly, this works in every industry, not just this. But in this particular industry, as you might be gathering by now, because I keep talking about these brokers, is relationships. So commercial real estate fundamentally operates on trust networks where your relationships with the brokers are going to determine your deal flow. So I've beat that one to death already. I don't want to talk more about it. People are going to know and trust you. So property owners, capital partners, brokers, sellers of properties. For example, you might find a seller that's been doing it for 50 years and they own multiple properties. And as you're negotiating with that seller to maybe buy their first property, even before they start to negotiate with you, even before they meet with you, you could send them links to some of your content that gives them the opportunity to get to know you before you even show up for that meeting or the call or whatever it is. And odds are, if you're doing a good job with your content, they're going to become predisposed to doing business with you if you come across in your content as likable, knowledgeable, and trustable. And then finally, a blue ocean strategy. So in this particular space, commercial real estate investing, almost nobody is doing this. Most people are doing it the old-fashioned way. So in my case, rather than going and competing in a red ocean, otherwise known as cold calling brokers all the time, I'm going to create my own blue ocean to separate myself so that I can accomplish that goal of really just having my phone ring and deal flow coming my way. So my main competitive advantages are limited competition in the content space. As I mentioned, nobody's doing this. A tech-forward approach. And one of the things that I used AI to do was I really wanted to figure out who should my target audience be for this content? Because I'm not making it for everybody. I'm making it for a very specific audience. Again, in my aviation channel, I made content specifically for middle-aged, higher income earners who were typically they were successful either in a blue-collar trade, like plumbing, electrician, or they owned a business in that regard. Maybe they owned an HVAC business or something like that. Or they were a business owner of some other kind of business and they just got burned out and they wanted to go do something that was more fun. They wanted to do something that they didn't have to work as many hours and gave them a better lifestyle. And so by focusing all of my content on that audience, that's one of the things that helped that channel to grow so fast and become the number one channel of its type for career changers who want to become airline pilots. And then finally, I'm a huge systems guy. I obviously don't do this all alone. I have a team that supports me, but I'm generally the one that is thinking up the systems and the processes initially that need to be in place so that I don't have to do all the work. There's a guy that I know well, his name's Dan Martell, and he calls it buying back your time. If you're trying to do this all on your own, it's going to be a ridiculous amount of work. So the key there is to not do it all on your own. The key is to have the systems and processes in place that will allow you to delegate a lot of the little working in the business content creation stuff that you don't want to do. Like, for example, right now, I am looking to hire a full-time content manager. And now once that person's in place, and I'm going to hire an experienced person, once that person's in place, content ideation ideally is off of my desk. In other words, what kind of content are we going to produce? Content production is off of my desk, other than sitting in front of the camera and actually doing the talking and recording. Content publication and promotion is off of my desk. That's already off my desk, actually, because I have an assistant on my team that handles that. So you want to put yourself in the position where you can spend as much time as possible working on your business. In my case, that's probably going to be building those relationships and hosting events and attending events and doing the underwriting and looking at the deals and so forth. And eventually I'll have people on the team that do all that stuff as well. But by hiring the content manager, I'll be able to keep my content machine running with less and less of my time. So I mentioned earlier the flywheel effect. You're going to have strategic content. That's going to lead to target audience growth. That's going to lead to proprietary deal flow. That's going to lead to more strategic content. That's going to lead to successful transactions, and around the racetrack we go. So each successful transaction becomes content that then attracts the next opportunity. And I can't tell you how many times in my life, in other businesses before the real estate investment business, where this has been absolutely proven to be true. So that's a real quick overview of why content is so incredibly important. Let's just summarize with the main points. Number one, for 10 years now, I've been a content creator. I always lead whatever I'm doing by creating content. For example, I used to have an Amazon reseller business. It was twice ranked on the Inc. 5000. One of the reasons why that business grew so quickly is that we created content. And then I had a very happy surprise in addition to running that business and it growing so quickly because I was creating content about how well the company was doing. I got invited to speak at a conference where there was 500 or 600 other people in the audience who also had Amazon reseller businesses. And so I was on stage explaining in great detail all the things, the systems and the processes that I'd built and the overseas employees that I'd hired to help me forge these relationships with these manufacturers whose products we were selling. And I turned it all into standard operating procedures and I'd streamlined the whole thing. And I'd actually delegated myself right out of the business within 12 months of starting it. And when I got off stage, I was mobbed by people who'd been watching my content for quite a while. So they knew who I was. And when I got off stage, all of them said, "Hey, I need the systems that you have. Will you sell me a copy of yours?" And it wasn't something that I'd ever considered doing. And when enough people asked me, I thought, I guess we could try. And so we made an offer a couple of weeks after that, and we sold $412,000 worth of copies of my systems in a 5-day period of time. That was the most profitable week of my life. And if I hadn't created content, none of that would have happened. And the first commercial building that I bought, by the way, that's where the down payment came from. So there was a serious compounding effect to my creating that content. Content first, AI to help you figure out. So point number 2 is leverage the hell out of AI to figure out a plan for how to create the content. And then number 3, build the systems and the processes that you need so that you're not the one doing all the work. Like, for example, I don't edit any of my own videos. It would take, I'm not an editor. I don't know how to do it. I don't want to know how to do it. It would take absolutely forever. I probably wouldn't be a content creator if I had to edit my own videos. But there are certain roles that you absolutely must fill if you're wanting to be successful as a content creator. And I think that those are them. I really appreciate you guys coming to attend and leaving the comments and giving the likes and so forth. It's always a thrill for me to do this. And we will be back next week with another live stream. And I hope to see you all here. Take care. Bye-bye.